Welcome. My name is Gena Timberman, and you are listening to Timber People, a podcast about people who, like timber, are strong, build and create, who gather us together like fuel that feeds fire. People who support structures of our community that uplift and protect. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy and honored to have my friend, longtime friend, Yancey Red Corn on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Gena, for having me. I really appreciate it.
We've been talking for some time about doing a show, and I've just been really blessed to know your family, and I've been a part of your family fan club for many years. And we were saying just before the show that, you know, in recent months and years, I'm like, where in the world is Yancey? You're doing so many cool things. I can't wait to talk about everything that you've been accomplishing and what you're doing today. And I love it.
First thing first, my mom, Jerry Red Corn, I told her I was coming up here, and she said, well, tell Gena I'm so proud of her.
Oh, thank you.
And he was like,
that means so much.
Well, she goes, you do she does everything. And then she goes, and I remember when she was younger, coming to some of the festivals my mom did, and she'd show up and play stickball. Gena would play stickball and participate in it. And she was like, man, and she was in Wings of America. And
yeah,
she did all my mom remembered all this stuff and just have apparently watched you just, you know, I don't know if grow up. I don't know when she was talking about the first time she met you, how old you were. And then everything that you've done, she was just wanted me to relay that.
Thank you so much. It's really been such a gift to know her and to looked up to her, you know, throughout my life. And it was a real blessing also to be on the Sovereignty Symposium panel with the two of you. And I always love to hear her speak about her artwork and about her journey, and always love to hear you speak. And I'm just really proud for everything that you and your family have been doing. And I can't wait to talk about your adventures.
My mom always said, and this is when my dad was alive, because he was an author, and he, you know, he did a lot of stuff. He was a mediator between tribes and the government, did lobbying in D.C. But my mom always said, as we got older, she was like, you know, our family looks good on paper. and it was, I know that was very sarcastic.
I would differ with that, but you look great on paper, but you do awesome things. And I know that people have seen you on screen and have seen her artwork, and especially in the First Americans Museum, it's so prominent and large. You know, that beautiful work with that theater and her pottery. And I just, you have such a talented and multidimensional family, from your artwork to your knowledge about sovereignty and treaties. And I've heard you speak so much about your cultural ways and just what you're doing throughout Indian country with Indian country business development. And I love it. I love it. And you really, I feel like you're always doing something new.
Well, I'm trying to. I mean, because I guess maybe I haven't been diagnosed, but I don't know if I have ADHD or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
I felt that way.
have to move and just keep my attention.
I feel that way. I feel that way. A bored Gena, or, you know, when I'm kind of still like that, sometimes I'm like, could be a dangerous Gena. So I like to keep
right, exactly.
I like to keep things moving. But for the listener, Yancey and I met when I was in law school at OU, and I know you've studied federal Indian law at OU, and you live in Norman now, and grew up in Pawhuska, right?
Right.
And it's just you've been all over the state, but the world knows Yancey Red Corn now.
Is that good or bad?
You were holding up the line at the Cannes Film Festival. Your beautiful blankets and your beautiful hat.
I was my sister was in Cannes too at the same time. The next morning she woke up, and I was out a little late, that night, just a little bit. And my sister, was up early, and then she said she was looking online and going through everything, and she went, holy smokes, you were number 5 on the best dress on the red carpet. And I was like, by GQ and stuff. And I was like, you're kidding, right? And it just went viral, and it was kind of funny.
I wasn't surprised, but it was just so much fun. And It was emotional to see you in the film and to know that, they say that, first of all, it was so cool that your sister was your plus one, and because that would be so meaningful for like for me and my brother. And I know what that story and history means to you and your family and and your heritage. But I will tell you, they say we have our angels and our ancestors with us. And I've heard you speak before about experiences in the filming where you were really tapping into the wisdom and words of your ancestors to really rise to that occasion. And I love that when you were walking the red carpet, you were moving forward like you're supposed to be there. And absolutely, like I really was so proud of that for you.
Well, and that's what my cousin Tali, who he and I are Tali Red Corn, are the same age, and he played the Nanajing traditional leader in there.
Right.
And so he and I were riding over in the same limo along with Tatanka Means.
Right.
And we were talking, and he was going, "Are you nervous?" And I go, "I'm not nervous." And he was like, "I'm not either." And then we were like, "Man, let's just walk on that red carpet like we walk underneath our arbor during our Osage and Lanska dances, like we belong there." Mm-hmm. So we were like, so that kind of, we were just like, we belong here. So we did that, and we wore our blankets as a nod to our Osage people.
Absolutely,
because mine was made by my sister and my mom, and it's the blanket that I wear when I name. I'm in the naming clan, which is the Peacemaker clan. So I always wear that blanket when I name people, and in our clan, and so it was not. And I talked to some older Osage ladies when I saw them when I came back, and they said they got so emotional seeing the blanket and stuff, and how we carried ourselves, and so that really made me feel good that I didn't know if anybody would even notice, but a lot of the Osage people loved that we wore the blankets on there, so it was just a good nod to the Osage people, because that's who we were representing, and not just Osages, but we were representing every other tribe, 530 something tribes, and I'm going to go into this too. After the next morning, after the premiere in Cannes, I'm walking down to go have breakfast, and this I got talked to by several people that were not from the United States, and they were indigenous. Mm-hmm. So some were from Africa, some were from Thailand, and they were directors of movies, and they were saying, "Thank you for being in this movie, and thank you for telling your story." Obviously in their accent, and they said, "This is not just about your tribe and tribes in the United States. This is about us and how colonialism, brutalized, our people." And so they were glad it was saw internationally, because it's their story too.
Yeah, and that PTSD, of that generational trauma and what was happening in the world at that time, especially, but it's still relative today. Right. And I know you've spoken before about like the Tulsa race riots and your family's connection to Tulsa and that experience up there, and for a Native person and our history in Oklahoma, what is now Oklahoma, and our stories. This is an Oklahoma story. I want to say I love that you stated once that, or probably many times, that this is a book that people should read, everyone should read, but that should be taught in our schools, because it's about how not to treat people. Right. And that really stuck with me. And with the book, I know that your relatives, that book that your family, that Pipe for February, right, and informed that experience of telling your story. And it was really special to see so many of your family members. I know we had Margot Gray on the show recently, and right, also just to know that so many of your people, whether they were in the movie or not, were consultants, your language people, your cultural people, and really it's it feels like Native people were really seen and heard in telling that story, which really in the big picture wasn't that long ago.
Right. No, it's only 100 years ago.
Right.
And that's not very long.
Right.
And Margot, her grandfather was Henry Roan, maybe great grandfather. I'm trying to remember, but and so it was really for the Grays, and my grandmother was a Gray,
right?
But for the Grays that were directly towards Henry Roan, it was really hard for them to, even during the filming, it was hard,
right?
So you're talking about the intergenerational trauma. It's there, and it's there for me too. And my son, who's 25, because my great grandfather was poisoned and murdered during this time too. And but of course, it was unsolved because people in power would not investigate. And even though his sons tried to, which my grandfather tried to get them to investigate, but no one did anything about it. And it was something you couldn't do. I mean, it was, and I said this in the movie, and it was basically my ad lib was, we couldn't trust our neighbors, the federal government, the state government, the preachers, the ministers, the
lawyers,
priests,
yeah.
the lawyers, the morticians,
right.
the morgue, anybody. You couldn't trust anybody there. So if you can imagine living at that time, and my dad does a good job of it in A Pipe for February, because that's from his book that he wrote, and it comes from the Osage point of view, and it's from these early 20-somethings, 4 cousins, and what they're trying to do in the early 20s, trying to figure out, are they going to live traditional, and they can afford anything they want to, and so they're trying to come to terms, and at the same time, they got family members getting murdered around them, and so a lot of partying, a lot of trying not to think about it. Yeah. But at the same time, you do think about it and talking to their elders and trying to figure out where to go. And my dad said, what got us through was our culture. Right. We stuck with that, which we still have on our dances and all of our ceremonies. We still have the majority of them, and that helped us continue as a people. Mm-hmm. And if we hadn't had that, and if our like my great grandfather, my great uncle took over after his older brother, which is Raymond Red Corn, died. Mm-hmm. Uncle Wakenine, whose also other name is George Red Corn, took over responsibilities and passed down his knowledge to my dad, and he was the name giver in our clan. Right. So everything that my dad learned was from him, and everything my Uncle Wakenine learned from his grandfather, who was born in the 1830s. And so orally, in our name giving and the clans and stuff, comes directly from that, not in any books. And then I learned from my dad, and then I've been teaching my son. He goes to the clans, and he knows to the clan name giving, and he has an understanding too. So when I die, he takes over and is able to do that. So we just keep passing that down. And I mean, all I know about Osages is what my dad told me, which he learned from his grandfather, which he learned, and that's all we know. And that's all tribes, you're Choctaw. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's passed down orally. And I mean, it's from, like the naming ceremony goes back when the Osages were in Missouri, pre-colonists, and we were doing that same ceremony back then. It's the oldest tradition we have. Right. And so it's orally passed down on how we do it.
That's the beauty of that continuum, that cultural continuum of that connected chain from the past to the present and what will be our future. And, really, like we've, talked about is the ancestors and our angels there with us to tell that story. And you had to do that ad lib speech. For the listener, what was it like playing your character and that experience and working with Scorsese and De Niro and Leo and Lily? It's just like,
oh my God, Lily was
Lily
just
is
incredible.
The queen. She's amazing.
Yeah, and it was. I never got nervous when I went on the set. Well, I knew my lines and I knew my character because he was a real life character. Right. So I knew all about him because my dad mentioned him in his book. and that's where I think Scorsese, because they read my dad's book and they put things in there from my dad's book, and they paid us for it as a family.
Right.
So, because the opening prologue comes directly from my dad's book, where they're burying the pipe. But so uh, so I wasn't nervous, but it was daunting to be the first scene I had both De Niro and DiCaprio when I had a bunch of lines, and my main purpose in it was just in the roundhouse scene, and I'm the kind of one that where everybody has to play off of, even De Niro and Lily and DiCaprio
as Chief
Bonnicastle.
Yeah.
And so we so I would, I'd have to do my lines over and over again, and then he would change it up a little bit, and I, have to do this and this, that, and it was, and then he said to ad lib, and well, first he took me in his tent, and I was glad to be in it because it was 105 outside, and so I cooled down a little bit. But he pointed to the script and he goes, "Just forget the script, and just when you go back out there, ad lib." Or he didn't say ad lib; he said scat. He goes, "I want you to scat." And I had to think about that. I was like, scat. And I finally went,
it's really about speaking from the heart.
Right.
Yeah.
but scat, at first I was thinking, so he wants me to go out there and do a jazz, little scat, like Ella Fitzgerald.
Right.
But then I went, okay, ad lib. But from that point he said, okay. So I started walking back, and I didn't have to walk 8 yards. So to get it to where I sat, and right when I sat down, they were like, okay, rolling, getting ready to say action. And as they were saying rolling, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to say. And then boom, and then I just somehow I imagined that I was my great grandfather going through that time and what he would be thinking. And so I would just, throwing out what he would be saying. So I just thought that was probably, like you said, angels, him coming in, and I was just, projecting what he was thinking at the time.
Yeah, I think sometimes we really are like a vessel through which our ancestors or angels can speak through us, or the creator sometimes. And, I think that's really important. I think about, oh, wow, like I think if I were in that position, how intimidating, or I would like that. That's a huge moment to have on that kind of platform with those professionals. And how cool to have your people with you in that moment, of your family members, and even the experiences of being like the Academy Awards or the festival, or these big public events. But in that moment, to be able to look around and visually hold hands with your people, like, okay, we got this, we can do this. Our people have been here before.
Yeah, well, and that was very daunting, because there was relatives, aunts and out behind, like Lily, and like Lily was kind of in front of me, and where I directed something about her, and then she respond. But when we'd be talking and we do the scenes over and over, the aunties out in the back, their relatives were murdered too. And so when we're talking, trying not to get emotional, but they'd be crying, like openly crying. And so you had to like cut that out, even though, you wanted to be emotional too. And it was really, really emotional. It was after we'd done that day of filming, you just were like, just tired, really tired, because it was just a lot of stuff came out of you. And I think all the Osages that were in there in that roundhouse was very tired too, from the emotional draining that they had to go, because they were reliving, what their grandparents went through, and the ones that were murdered, like my great grandfather, and nobody did anything about it. And so, I mean, we all know, Osages, we all know that our relatives that were murdered then were murdered, but there was nothing that they could do about it. And so it was that was daunting, looking at all of them in there and how emotional it was.
Yeah. And, you've talked about this before, but it's like that power with that feeling disempowered. And then it's like the control that was exerted and not having any control. And it really, our leaders had to, like your character, had to make a lot of difficult decisions and had to lead and provide direction in the most incredible times. And, so thinking about that as you as a person, Yancey, looking at your people being emotional and you keeping it together to move forward, to move everything forward in that moment is really interesting to me. And it's that connection to that past too. Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah, people also know you from many different facets of life and cool things. But I also think of Reservation Dogs and your Indian Country's one of Indian Country's favorite uncles.
Yeah, that was and they had they have the final four.
I meant to wear your pen today.
They have the final four of the Indian Country's sexiest man alive.
Yeah,
I made it in the second round. It was really weird. It was really kind of funny that I was even considered because I was the oldest guy. It's like the last four are probably 35
right,
and in their 20s and in their 20s too.
Yeah.
So all these handsome young, very fit men, and so it's ridiculous. And funny and absurd. And I got the Huncle thing is when it started, when I was doing all the red carpets.
Right. I
would meet people like, Salma Hayek.
Right.
Or Natalie Portman or Margot Robbie and Emma Stone. So, I mean, I really didn't think anything about it. We started talking. I go, let's do a selfie. Or they would say, yes, let's do something. Let's take a picture. And we'd take a picture. And then I posted it. Because really, that's all I knew how to do on Instagram was just kind of do it right then immediately, or else I was going to forget about it.
It was so fun to see those.
So I had that one with Margot Robbie, and they were like, that indigenous TV. I still don't know who they are. It's posted like Yancey is dating Margot Robbie. But then the next day, I ran into Emma Stone, and we were talking. And I took a selfie then. And so the next day it was posted and they went, Yancey already dropped Margot Robbie to be with Emma Stone.
I love it.
And then they just kept firing stuff out there. And then they did that one where they had all the different pictures with me, with all the women. And I think it was a Redbone song, you got to find him a woman or something like that. And in it, what was really funny, they had these different memes of one, they had a guy shining a flashlight underneath the bed going, just checking under the bed before I leave my girlfriend's place to make sure Yancey's Huncle's not underneath there.
Right.
And there was all, they just came up with this hilarious stuff.
It's been so fun and special to see like my friends like you on that world stage of like humor and also being recognized. And how long from beginning to completion, how long were you engaged in the filming and the
Well, I mean, I auditioned probably 2019, the first one,
right.
And then got 2 callbacks, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so
that's such a blur of a time period. I'm like, what? How long was that?
I actually kind of grew a beard.
Yeah.
I was just hanging out, with my mom and I,
right.
Staring at each other, and I'd go for runs, and that was my life.
Yeah.
And so I think it was November of 2020.
Right.
There was a phone call, and COVID was still going. I think they were starting to kind of do, and then it was from the on my phone. It was like from Beverly Hills or something, and I was like, "What is this?"
Right.
So I answered anyway. Good to see, and it was the casting agent. I think it was Renee Haynes Casting,
mm-hmm.
And they just said it was one of the associates, and she just said, "Hey." Asked if it was me. I said yes, and they said, "Are you going to be available March 2021 through September 2021? And you can't take any vacations, you can't do anything like that." And I just went, Sure.
You're like, what else are we going to be doing?
Right.
Right.
and then they said, this doesn't mean anything. We're just checking off boxes right now.
Yeah.
So then I didn't hear anything again until January of 2021. And so they called me in January 2021 and they said, we're going to send you a text of well, you'll see it when you get it, we email it to you. You can either memorize it, make it your own, but if you make it your own, you've got to start with these first 4 or 5 sentences verbatim, and then you've got to end with, a paragraph verbatim. And I think it was 2 pages, maybe 2.5 pages. So they emailed it to me, and I printed it out. And again, they said, this doesn't mean anything. Just, we can see it. But it was a tribal tribal councilman talking to his, people, community. And so it was basically a speech.
Right.
And so I memorized it, but then I made it my own.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff that I made it my own ended up in the script.
That's great.
But I did that, and I had a guy video me doing that. But it said they said it could only be 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I couldn't get it under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I can't cut this out.
That had to be daunting,
I can't
too,
cut it out.
Say what you want to say about that.
Right.
And
I was like, if I take this out, it's just not going to mean anything. So finally, after doing it over and over again, I would just email it in. What are the odds? So there's probably 100 other people up for this part. And I'm kind of tired of it. So he emailed it. And it was 2 weeks later, they called me. And I think it was Ellen Lewis or was it Renee Haynes, but they called and said, Yancey, this is, we're casting agents and for killers, and we wanted to say you've got the part of Chief Bonnicastle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was just so weird that I just really didn't have any response. And I was like, okay. And they were like, are you excited? And I was like, yeah. And so then they said at the end of it, they go, well, the Apple attorneys would be calling you to go over your contract the next day. And I was like, then I thought, maybe this is a big deal because the attorneys have to talk to me, to go over my contract. But later on, when we were doing I think we were in Cannes or I don't know, New York, and I was talking to the casting ladies that are head, they're the best casting agents in the world. Yeah. And they, I was talking to them and I go, do you remember when you called me and you said, this, and I just didn't really respond. And because I'd heard from all these other actors and actresses, when they got it, they all cried or jumped hip, hip, hooray and stuff. And I go, I didn't have any emotion at all. You must have thought I was an asshole. And they go, no, we just thought things like this happen to you all the time.
Well, you do have exciting things that happen to you all the time. But it had to be surreal.
I mean, it was it's surreal that I'm even talking to you on a podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
It's just, I don't know. It's almost like I have imposter syndrome or something like that. But I've done all these different I've been all over. Right. All over. I even walked on I already know this, on the red carpet at the Oscars and sat in there in seats in front of the stage while it was going on. And so I had a really long conversation with Ryan Gosling on the red carpet. And then even after the performance, and I had a good conversation with Jodie Foster on the red carpet.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
And Ryan was the one that came up to me. I was standing on the red carpet, and he's walking in with his mom, and we kind of locked eyes. But then he just came over to me, and he was like, "Man, you look really good." And I go, "You look really good too." And then he introduced me to his mom, and he was just so nice, and it was like he was a regular guy, which he wasn't, obviously, but. And Jodie just asked me first thing. She goes, I really liked the movie and I really liked you in it. She goes, but what are your thoughts on True Detective Night Country? Did we do a good job with the indigenous people and stuff? It was a
good opportunity.
And I said, well, I saw it and I thought it was great. And I go, I'm not a member of their tribe, so I can't speak for them.
Right.
But I could see that you guys took care in representing them, and
Yes.
so that's what I said, and then
I
I ran into her
appreciate that.
later.
Yeah.
But she was really sincere. You can kind of tell
Well,
she
you're
really.
sincere, you're authentic. And so I think that is a language that people who are like that, it's real. Yeah.
But yeah, speaking, I mean, that was all surreal too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I can't even imagine. So your son, he's a screenwriter. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah. He's a writer too. I mean, that's a family heritage,
Yeah.
the writing and yeah.
He and my dad were really close.
Right.
And so my dad, would play the piano with them, and then they would, like do art, and then he learned to write. Just talking with his grandfather,
Right.
And so it gave him, he could do this, knowing that his grandfather published a book, and he just knew that he could write too, and he just wrote. He's been writing since he was a kid.
Yeah, I think about the confidence and that you're giving to future generations of Native people, but your own family members, the next generations to come, that, well, my grandfather or my uncle or my relative did these things and they walked the red carpet and did these. I think our experiences kind of build upon themselves. They pave for the next generations. And I like to think of that.
Yeah. My sister tried to pave the way for him to go to her alma mater, Dartmouth, and took him around to all these places because she dotes on him.
Yeah,
and he just is like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. I already know what I want to do, and I'm just going to keep writing and doing this stuff. And that's what he wrote. He wrote a script for my dad's book, and Martin Scorsese helped him edit it. And right now it's up in Apple's hands. We'll see if they'll take it or not.
Right. It's really cool.
But who knows?
I can't wait to see. I love that. I love that your family, that you inspire each other, you teach one another, and that you like to work with one another. And I know that you've worked with your mother and other people in your family in different capacities, but I want to talk a little bit about the White Buffalo Alliance. I know you're working on that a little bit together too. I'm excited to learn more.
Well, I've been working on that, God, for a long time.
Right.
And what we've come up to with what we've been doing is we've come up with a solution for diaspora people. Mm-hmm. And that includes any indigenous community.
Right.
I mean, you could even go with the people that are being thrown out of Gaza to help them.
Right.
But we're focusing right now on preventing the MMIW, prevention, and helping them. Women and men can get kicked out of their house and they don't have anything. Right. And what happens is with women a lot, and I'm not a woman, but I just hear it, that, they get kicked out from their husband that has been controlling, and he controls their bank accounts and their cars and everything like that. And so they really are kicked out and they have nothing. So what our solution is able to, this is not crypto. We're able to put either a card or give them a free phone, and they can have cash to go take care of their essentials, and it'll help them move on. But we also give them pathways within our app on, this is where you can find shelter. This is where you can find, medical help. This is where you can get this. This is where you can get that, and helping them move. This is where you get a free ride. We'll pay for Uber or Lyft to get you to wherever you need to go, and to get you to the right people. But you'll also be able to have money, whether it was with a card, and even if the card gets stolen, they get another one. Yeah. And that card won't work for anybody else except them. Right. And then the app too. So it's something we've been working on, and actually we've been working with the SEC to make sure that it doesn't violate any securities. Right. Because we don't want to be like Sam Bankman-Friedman or something like that. Right. And you've got to watch out for that stuff. So we've got a good team. And we've got other people that are jumping on too. So and we're a co-op, so we can. It's within the cooperative laws under the Oklahoma Cooperative Act, because we kind of mimicked that so that we could do certain things with other agencies. And so this is what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying this is my later life, because hopefully I'll live long like my mom and have her genetics.
Right. I mean, you're working with good stock there. You're working with great genetics. She's amazing.
So I just want to help people now. I was in the casino business and doing all that kind of stuff, and that was dog eat dog. And, And I know you know all about that, and that was doing good too. But at the same time, it was so political, and I did it for 20 years, and it aged me immensely.
Right, I understand that. We all need pathways to take care of ourselves and our communities and our families, and this is such an important initiative. And it's always been so much fun to follow you on social media and to run into you and to keep up with you. If a listener wants to learn more about your initiative, what is the website, or how would they learn more to support?
Well, it's the website we have, and mind you, we're kind of in stealth mode, but they can go to ndgtraks.com, indigitraks.com, and that'll come up. And we're still making changes to the website, but that can give you a little overall of what we're all about. And then you can email for more information if you want to be involved. And then also I have a website, YanceyRedCorn.com.
Yes, I love it. I mean, I knew. I wasn't surprised either. Before you were in the movie, I'm like, you know what's funny is typically it's like a non-native person asks me, like, they're like, hey, do you know Yancey? I'm like, yes, I do. You're like that great connector. You're Lord. It's that, like, the 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever. Like, you are Kevin Bacon. But also, I love to know that your state senator selected you to join her at the State of the State address, where all of the state leaders invited someone from their district. And I love that you are an ambassador for Native people here, and that it's just promoting that awareness and understanding, one, of who we are, that we're still here, and we're relevant in our society, but also that it's important we tell our stories and educate about Oklahoma's history, but also, you've been that advocate of tribal sovereignty and of arts and of treaty history, and just so much appreciate your commitment to all you do and all your family does. And again, I'm so blessed and honored to know you and your family, and to have you in my life as my friends. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. And I want to add one more thing. We'll probably have it in December, but the audiobook's done. My sister did the female voice, and I did the male voice for Pipe for February.
Yes.
It's all done. And then Martin Scorsese, he wrote a new foreword, and we republished my dad's book.
Oh, awesome.
And he read the foreword too, so it's all added. We'll have an audiobook for A Pipe for February coming out.
Yes.
And I'm going to New York City next month, be there for a week, and then we'll kind of throw out more PR for it too.
That would be awesome. Oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you for being on the show, Yancey. It's been great to have you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I did a plug right there at the end.
Oh, I love it. No, I love it. No, thank you.
No, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yakoki.
Yeah.
Yakoki, thank you for joining us. Timber People is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.